So hello everyone, hello again. Just so you know, now we are reaching 250 people connected simultaneously. It seems that you are having some issues with the Eventbrite link, so we are trying to figure that out. Sorry for that. So I hope you can see my screen. We'll have 40 minutes together to discuss now about how the market is evolving and the media market is evolving. This session will be moderated by David Bouchard, who is in charge of the cloud solution, and that will be speaking right after me. Feel free to raise your question at any time, please. So moving on, this is actually a way we like to use to categorize the market. So on this slide, we not only represent, it's not the question about whether it's an ATEM customer or not an ATEM customer. We do represent here what we can call a quadrant of the market between content providers, so people creating, owning, producing the content, service providers, people who are used to distribute the content, the traditional players, so people being in the business for 10, 20, 30 years, and what we can call the new entrants. The difference between the traditional players and the new entrants is about the digital native aspect. New entrants used to be, or are the one offering content or distributing content without a set-top box. They most likely distribute on an app being available on the connected devices, being a set-top box, being a tablet, a smartphone, a laptop, a gaming console. So this is a nice way to represent the market. It's also a simple way because you can put people in baskets, and it's always easy to put people in baskets. Yet, as you can see, I highlighted what I can call the X factor, Netflix. The X factor is actually a customer or someone which has disturbed the market so that it has completely reshuffled the market. And we consider that Netflix and the success, the emergence of Netflix as a global player completely reshuffled these four quadrants. And not only between content providers and service providers, but also between traditional players and new entrants. Indeed, the success of Netflix showed the way to new way of creating content, distributing content, but also the way we consume content, moving from the 24/7 window on a big screen television to binge watching of various shows at any time on any screen. Actually now, we can consider that the market is most likely looking at this, meaning we have everybody, content providers and service providers, going after the end user through OTT offer, also known as direct to customers. And in this offer, they invest a lot into content, either because they spent their own capex, their own investments, like Netflix, like Disney, like Amazon, like Apple, or whether there is a merge and acquisition process, meaning service providers buy content providers or content providers buy service providers. For instance, Comcast purchased NBC a few years ago. CBS purchased Viacom last year, and so on. So eventually, the borders between the various quadrants is a bit more blurry than what we used to see. The other aspect that we are seeing is that in this rush to the end user, people are investing also into niche content in order to create differentiation. Indeed, when you used to have only one OTT service like Netflix, where you could find everything, the choice was simple. You want to watch OTT, you go over the top. Now that you have more and more offers, that is creating some issues that we will get on that subject later. And in order to survive and to exist, people create differentiation through niche. On this slide, you have various examples. Fubo, virtual service provider in the US offering sport, NBA basketball, WW Network about wrestling, Tennis Channel tennis, Curiosity Stream about science, Cheddar about horror movie, BritBox and Acorn TV, British drama, available either in UK or in the US. So bottom line, if and when you want to watch some of these niche content, you subscribe to one of these services. But when we move from a simple solution having 4 quadrants to a solution where you have more blurry borders, then you have issues. And with great change comes great problem. So it's not only a question of translation. Translation is not an issue there. It's rather a question of, first, we are a bit lost in the subscription process. Indeed, like I mentioned, a few years ago, there were only Netflix. So you wanted to watch OTT or over the top, you went and subscribed to Netflix and it was easy. Nowadays, we as end user, we tend to be lost amongst the various offers. So the content fragmentation and the offer fragmentation is huge. I don't know where to find that content. It used to be on that channel. Now I don't know anymore whether it's on this OTT service or this OTT service or another OTT service. In addition, when we multiply the number of subscriptions, we can end up paying an high bill. Remember that one of the success of Netflix and a few of the early services is that they were a replacement of pay TV. And in some countries, the pay TV subscription was quite high, 50, 60, 70, 100, 150 euros. Netflix and others came with aggressive pricing or skinny bundles, or meaning a few number of channels, or a combination of the two, so that people say, I don't need to pay a huge amount. I can have a good enough quality of content with 10, 20 euro. But now that the offer is fragmented, you have to stack up all the services. And so instead of paying once 10, 15, 20 euro, you have to pay that once, twice, 3, 4, 6 times. And so eventually, one of the advantages that made the success of the early adopters, meaning low prices, is no more applicable. So that's one issue. We are a bit lost in the subscription process. The other one, as I already mentioned, is lost in searching. Indeed, we don't know where to find which content. There was a study saying that a Netflix user spend up to 17 minutes to select a content. We all experience, irrespective whether we talk about Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, or all the other services, this effect where we are in the sofa at 8 p.m. and we start scrolling down the thumbnails and we start again and again. And that's the best case scenario when we know that we want to find a content on the given service. Remember my example, sometimes we don't know anymore where to find the content that we want. So we are lost with all this offer, content, and subscription fragmentation. But with great problem comes great solution. And I put a picture of Darwin because, as usual, the companies that are becoming successful nowadays are the ones who are adapting their offer. And if they don't adapt, they'll die. Slowly, but they will die. So companies are adapting. And we see two kinds of adaptation. The first one is about the ability of service providers, so pay TV operators, to act as the rebundler, an aggregator. You have here one of the sentence brought by NBC Peacock chairman, who said, the great unbundling could lead to the great rebundling. What does it mean? A few years ago, as I mentioned, OTT services led people to unsubscribe to their pay TV subscription. It's also known as cord cutting. It's also known as unbundling. So people started to watch and consume content on various offers. But now that there are so many offers, people are a bit lost, like I mentioned. And pay TV operators and service providers did not lose all of their assets. Maybe people cancel their TV subscription, true, but they kept for sure their broadband access. And in most of the cases, pay TV operators are also broadband providers. So pay TV operators may have lost some of the pay TV subscription, but they kept access to the end customer through the broadband access. And now that people are a bit lost with all these offer and content fragmentation, service providers have the ability to offer a unique portal, a unique place, so that people can subscribe at one place. So it could be seen as rebundling, or OTT app marketplace, or OTT app aggregator. Bottom line, service providers are becoming again successful with one of the criteria that they used some decade ago to trigger business: aggregation. 20 years ago, it was about aggregating linear channels into buckets. Now it's a question about aggregating apps. The other trend that we are seeing is the emergence of content recommendation for either AVOD service or S-VOD service. So what we mean by AVOD is ad subscription service. S-VOD is subscription service. One is about free, but financed by the ads. The other one is about a monthly subscription. We see a trend for these two services between AVOD and S-VOD, and also on the way content is recommended. So it's all about big data, analytics, research engine, so that we can have a better experience. But beyond that, there is a need for customized and personalized experience. Indeed, people, again, as I mentioned, are a bit lost with all this content. And they would like to receive what we call a personalized experience, either by having a dynamic channel lineup, meaning a personal bouquet of live channel, or also by receiving their own content. Some of service providers, and most likely content providers owning a big media library, are leveraging their library to create on the fly new channel, new content, as per outside event, as per the geography, as per the end user taste. And so eventually people, and the trend is that people will be receiving personalized and customized experience. Behind the scene, there are multiple benefits for our customers. Obviously, when you are a service provider, studies, like I'm showing at the bottom, at the top left, show that when you offer a dynamic lineup, viewers tend to reduce their churn rate by a ratio of 3, meaning that they tend to unsubscribe 3 times less than if you don't offer a personalized experience. Obviously, if you can customize the content, you can customize the ads. And if you can customize the ads, you can increase the price per minute of the ads that you are serving. And so eventually, like you have this example of Sling TV, you can increase your revenue by this targeting ad in the insertion. And lastly, this trend is welcoming by the customer. As we can see on the top part, people are ready to receive a customized experience, whether it's a customized ad or whether it's a customized lineup, if and when it allows them to reduce the subscription fee. Ads are also part of a bigger strategy. Here, I put an example that I found on streaming LUMASCape, which recap the various services, whether they are just AVOD or subscription VOD between live, offline, or virtual service providers. Originally, we consider that AVOD was only a way to differentiate between the incumbent, Netflix, Prime, Hulu, Disney+, even though it's quite new, it's one of the major behemoths in our industry. So one of the latecomers say, I will use AVOD, so a free service financed by VOD, in order to be different from the S-VOD giant. But eventually, we see that the reality and the strategy is a bit more complex, because some of the AVOD service are part of bigger group owning also S-VOD service. And so some of the groups use free AVOD service in order to attract later on to S-VOD. That leads to me to a quick pause. I would like to run a poll with you guys. So do you plan to use ads as part of your OTT service? The questions are, and the answers are completely anonymous. So don't worry, your name won't be disclosed. 20, 30, 40 responses. So you are now 205 customers or participants or journalists. Okay, so and polling, I will share with you the results. So 125 people vote. The majority of you say that they don't know yet whether they will use ads for creating a tier in the OTT service. And 39%, so 49 answers, say yes. So yeah, that's very interesting. Thank you for your participation on that front. Another poll that I would like to raise with you is whether you plan to upgrade your OTT service. I described to you various capability around ads, around content recommendation, personalized television, app portal. Is it in your plan to upgrade your OTT service? Okay, and polling. So most of you, yes. Let me share the result with you. The majority of you, 62%, or the majority of the answers, sorry, plan to upgrade their OTT service anytime soon. So thank you for that. Let's move to the next slide, which is my last slide before the Q&A. As a conclusion, like I mentioned, there are various trends that we are seeing. Personalized television, targeting ad insertion, content recommendation, aggregation. These are trends that we are seeing not only in Europe, but in all places. Latin America, North America, Asia Pacific, all of the customers, depending on whether they are content providers or service providers, are moving to one of the direction that I did expose to you. These are just the few trends that we can explain. There are much more. For instance, we know that augmented reality will also change the way we consume television, especially sports, by having some overlays, which is already a case today. Artificial intelligence, not only for the content recommendation, like we mentioned, but also for compression. You will have later on sessions with our VP Technology and VP of Innovation, where they will explain how we can use AI for achieving a better bandwidth efficiency. And 5G, when 5G will come, will also change the way we consume content. 5G will over-multiply the connectivity. We will be able to watch content with a very reduced latency in high resolution in almost all places. And so we are seeing already various scenarios whereby it's not only a question of I will consume a UHD content at that resolution, at that bitrate. It's also, for instance, the way that thanks to 5G, some customers are thinking that they will match your commute time so that they will serve you exactly your commute time for your episode. You have 20 minutes of your commute time between your home and your office. Then you will be receiving over 5G 19 minutes of your favorite show, be it Peaky Blinders or Casa de Papel or any other show. So there are plenty. The way we consume content is really a moving landscape. Let's move now to the question. So I can see 3 questions, David, if I'm correct. Yep. So question from Tommy. Hello, Tommy. Has there been a good reaction to your initiative to offer free software licenses for 90 days to certain pop-up channels? And if so, do you see Atem winning many customers from this? The answer is yes, Tommy. We did receive a solicitation from Australia, Asia Pacific, France, UK, and the US, whereby customers are now using our solutions to create some of their event channel or VOD catalog that they will for this crisis. Is it a vast majority of customers? That will be too much to say, but we have a decent numbers of customers and new customers that are now using our solutions thanks to this. Second question from Hervé. Do you think that to be successful, the aggregation should be done at the content level versus the app level? It's an interesting question because we see that the M&A process and the various alliances can be at various levels. We are indeed seeing an aggregation or an alliance between some of the content providers. We did not have time to go over it, but we know, for instance, that some of big content providers, an example is TF1 in France, even though they plan to go by themselves over the top or by themselves with their own OTT offer, which is a joint venture in France called Salto, some of the productions that they are doing are co-produced sometimes with one of their rivals. One of the co-production this year was produced with Netflix. So this is one of the aggregation or joint forces that we see. Eventually, I see a strong interest to offer an aggregation at the end user level, meaning the ability to join forces or to offer a unique solution, a unique portal, a unique way to subscribe at the end user. So that you have today Canal Plus in France or Apple TV, which are acting as one app to cover everything. Another question, does Atem offer full solution for ad insertion, or is it based on third-party integration? We do support all the skitty markers, inbound and outbound, in TS or ABR, and we are integrated with third-party ad insertion system. Frankino will follow up with you to detail with you the list of third-party systems that we are integrated and in production today, especially in the US. Last question, an anonymous attendee. Target ads server-side solution is a trend on OTT live streaming service. What is your opinion about target ad over the air based on traditional broadcasters' infrastructure? Is it feasible? How far are we from this service? It's by far a valid alternative. By default, I do not believe in binary world. I think that there will be several scenarios whereby you will have an ad server-side insertion solution, and you will have also broadcasters using modern standard like ATSC 3.0 or the equivalents in DVB to enable also targeting ad insertion in what we can call the classic broadcast. So this is feasible, and this is already ongoing in the US, for instance, with Sinclair, which is using the ATEM solution for that. David, you say that you would like to answer in live. Do you have any comment that you would like to?
No, I was just tagging the question so that, okay, you know.
Yeah. What do you think about, so question from France says, what do you think about Smart TV's app, Walled Gardens, and Android as aggregator of OTT offers, and how they could include the FTA channels? I think that this is one of the players they can or cannot win. I would not say that there will be one winner winning everything. There will be some smart TV or OTT app, for instance, like YouTube, that are becoming new players to include live channels or free-to-air channels. Will they be the winner? Absolutely no. Will there be a key player? The answer is yes. Do content providers for live channels allow not to use set-top box such as HBO, Fox, or Disney? The trend is not to use set-top box. I confirm, Carlos, that yes, the trend is not to use a set-top box, but rather a bring your own device approach. Then some companies are investing on these devices, for instance, the Apple TV, but as content provider, and even some of the content providers, step by step, most likely rely on these third-party services to offer their channel. How do you see, I think that will be the last question. How do you see the future of the satellite operators market compared to the OTT players as the way of watching the content is changing? It is true that the way of watching the content is changing, but as any operator, the satellite operators are adapting their offer. For instance, when you look at the global leader Eutelsat, they are adjusting their fleet in order to leverage the satellite that they have up in the air, not only to carry on a classic mainstream broadcast channel, but also now to carry on OTT. And there are various technologies that enable OTT over satellite. And satellite is very useful because in some part of the world, we can't reach a household or some regions by terrestrial connectivity, IP connectivity. And so in some region, in some applications, satellite is still the best way to go. And we will be, I'm sure that we will be seeing satellite operators continuing their innovation and leveraging their strengths the satellite fleet to come up with new innovation. Okay, I think that was it.
There is one last question, Remy.
One last question. Thoughts on hybrid solutions of OTT and IPTV in the Asia market? No. Like this, let me, if you can give us your name, we can follow up with you so that we can see exactly what you have in mind. Because we are seeing roughly the same trend, meaning that we have some customers going with hybrid solution, IPTV and OTT, especially in Singapore or in Korea. We are seeing the same trend of that we have described. So I would not say that there are specific thoughts. It's rather the same trend as we are seeing worldwide. Thank you everyone for all these questions. Just a quick heads up of the upcoming sessions. So the next session will be by David, Scale Your Media Supply Chain, and how we can leverage an hybrid infrastructure to produce, especially for VOD. Then there will be a session about linear channel for in the cloud, again, live and offline, off and on-prem. And there will be a demonstration of low latency, sometimes faster than the broadcast using CMAF. And lastly, in 3 hours from now, there will be a session, a technology session, about how we can produce in a more efficient manner bandwidth, how we can use bandwidth in a more efficient manner. Thank you, everyone. Let me now give the session to David.